So the topic today is winning in age of disruption and preparing for next normal. So this is the discussion topic today. I think is a very relevant topic. It's a very interesting topic. And I think we're all thinking about not only going through this phase that we are in right now, and when this phase will end and what will the new normal is going to be. So this is a very relevant topic. So I'd like you to engage yourself and maybe send me a text or send me raise your hand, and then I'll take care of that. So welcome to the webinar. It's hosted by Transform Ability. We focus in business excellence, digital transformation, and human capital development. And just to introduce the speakers, myself, my name is Numan, and I've been in the industry for 20 plus years. I've worked in different capacities, but mostly my forte or my experience has been in the transformation area, where I was able to galvanize, I was able to transform companies, communities, and people to thrive upon disruption and achieve excellence. With me is my partner here is Asad Mirza. Asad, if you're on the line, can you introduce yourself, please?
I'm here. Yeah.
So just maybe.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Go ahead, Asad, please. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So yeah, my name is as Numan said, Asad Mirza. I have been in the industry, multiple industries actually, probably for the last 20 years, and what I have been able to learn over these years, and it's a continuous journey, as you can imagine, about operations, Lean, Six Sigma stuff, quality stuff. And then I was fortunate enough to apply to various different industries, of course, automotive, food, beverages, healthcare, service industries. So I have been pretty fortunate to see how each company continued to transform themselves the past 20 years, and what are the challenges and some of the obstacles that they continue to face, and especially now they are facing. So it will be exciting to share some of those learnings with you guys today. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Asad. So again, a couple of things. Thanks for joining, and the mic is muted. And if you have any questions, please write in the chat box. So I always like to start with this tagline that the business as usual is dead, and there is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity in the market. And this is not the time that we're in, I think, which has highly elevated these things. But in general, for the last number of years, there's a lot of disruption. And the people who are not able to keep up with that disruption, and who were traditional thinkers and business as usual, those companies, we know that a lot of those companies, what they're doing. But at the same time, it's interesting that in the age of disruption, there's some companies thrived. There's some companies leveraged this disruption. They accelerated in this disruption. And the only thing is, which I believe the only constant is change. They changed. So what is winning in the age of disruption? Let's understand together. So if we take a look at the market right now, so a lot has changed. Some numbers here real quick. Jobless claims, highest ever if you look at the history. S&P 500 since March 12, almost 7.3 trillion in market value. wiped from the high of February 19th. Now we've recovered some of that already in the last week or so. I think we got back about 20%, but still huge value has been lost. Oil prices down, historical low, and volatility is high. So in a very short time, everything has changed. So the question is, with this crisis, and like any other crisis and disruption, a new normal is going to happen. People behaviors and business models are being disrupted. And what will happen is there will be a dramatic restructuring of economic and social order. And the question is that what will the normal look like? And I don't think so anybody can say that how long it will last and what will happen. But we know that the new normal or the next normal will be very different than what we have or what we were experiencing before. So because of this, our response is critical. So what I say is now is the bandage is ripped. And COVID is not our fault, but the choices that we make. Either we react to the situation or we respond to the situation. Like one of my favorite authors, Ziegler said here, that the response is very important. It's not the situation which is important, it's the response. Let's take a look at the history of some of the crises in the past. So there are crises of some magnitude throughout the history. 1929 Great Depression, 2000 dot-com bust, 2008 financial meltdown, and now we have this COVID-19 situation. And if you look at this chart here, that kind of tells you that what are the losses that happened during some of these crises before. So from McKinsey's prediction, I think we're going to go down by around between 8 and 13%. And a number of other economists and other people have the similar predictions as well. So I talked about the response. I talked about the behaviors that we can have. So here on this sheet here, you can take a look at, there can be 4 responses that in my experiences and in Assad's experiences that we gathered, 4 type of responses. Number 1, myopic. These are the companies and people who are just said, okay, there's a crisis. I'm not going to do much. I'm not going to look further. I'm not going to make any actions. I'm just going to go with the flow. So these are the companies or the people who said that we're just going to go with the flow. Then there's some companies which I call averters. These are companies who are risk-avert people or risk-avert companies, highly defensive companies. And their approach to a crisis or to this crisis or any crisis is cost-cutting and a very strong defensive approach to avoid losses. And the approach is cut cost across the board. Let go people, reduce all type of expenses. And this is the approach that they have taken. And we know many of those companies, and we'll take a look at some of those case studies as well. Then we have another set of people who I call adventurous people. Who are these adventurous people? These are people who are highly optimistic people to the extent that they take approaches where they're strong offensive or offense type of approaches they have taken to grow, but they did not look at the execution capabilities. They did not look at how we can improve our operational excellence. and they invested heavily in R&D. They invested heavily in sales and marketing and these type of things. Something that kind of comes to my mind is, if you can imagine, go back to 2007, 2008 in Detroit area. There was a time where automotive companies extended huge amount of discounts, okay, in the market, and they're just basically giving these cars away. But they were not like thinking, a lot of these companies, that how are we gonna offset these discounts, and eventually a lot of these companies collapsed, and but then they grew back. So the fourth category is the leaders. And who are the leaders? The leaders are the people who keep an optimal balance of direction and execution. And we'll take a look at a few case studies from this side as well. The other thing that I like to bring up is, here's the theory of diffusion of innovations. How innovation follows, or how innovation grow. So there are different phases in that. There's some people who are early, who are innovators, who are the people who adopt these innovations at a very early phase, 2.5%. Then there is early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. So this is what happened, which is a normal trajectory of the acceptance of innovation. Now, these crises can be an accelerator to this innovation, okay? So these crises can be an accelerator to the term what is called crossing the chasm. And crossing the chasm happened somewhere between early adopters and early majority. That transition from early adopters to early majority is when this crossing the chasm happened. And this is where something that we need to keep in mind, something we need to take a look at, what are some of the trends and how this crisis is going to accelerate those trends. And I'm going to talk about those in a minute. So let's take a look at an example, lessons from the crises. One of the companies, and we know Sony. Sony gave us Walkman, Sony gave us DVD player, Sony gave us TV. Sony just bring so much technology and innovation. But one of the things that Sony did back in the 2000s is, when the downturn happened of the 2000s, Sony took some very drastic measures, defensive measures. They cut their workforce by 11%. They cut their R&D expenditures by 12%, capital expenditures by 23%. Now, in the short term, if you look at this peak here, and this is where this thing is happening here, if you look at this peak here, okay, and this is the area, which is the area, the time frame I'm talking about here. Short term, they have some gains, but after that, when the market came back, but their growth just basically stands still, and they pretty much never came back. And we have this, we know how Sony has lost his competitive edge moving forward. And then there's Samsung, there's Apple, and a lot of these companies came in and filled those gaps. But this is one of the example of a drastic measure, and there are other companies as well who have done similar type of measures, and then they lost their edge. Let's take a look at another example here, Target. So again, couple of time frames. Target, when Target did some work back in 2000s in that recession. Target, when they look at the recession, when they put their strategy together, they looked into both offensive and defensive strategies. Uh, and then again, back in 2008, this time frame, when the recession hit, Target again did the similar type of approach in which they applied a balance of offense and defense. And so here in this area, here when this 2008 timing, they saw the same store sales decline, okay? And they saw a huge competition from Walmart. And you know the Walmart, one of their tagline is everyday low prices. So obviously the people were kind of attracted to that tagline, and so immediately Walmart, what they did is they changed their marketing strategy, and they went to their tagline of expect more, pay less. Okay. They consolidated some businesses, they expanded their grocery business, and because of those measures, we can see this type of improvement trajectory that Target had enjoyed after the 2008 recession. Moving forward, let's take a look at maybe a few other examples here. Classic example, Blockbuster versus Netflix. And this is where Blockbuster did not saw the opportunity that was present. And as a matter of fact, Netflix at one time went to Blockbuster and they said, hey, buy us for maybe $50 million. But obviously Blockbuster did not accepted that offer, and they just pretty much laughed at Netflix. And we know the history of Blockbuster and Netflix. So this is where the new business model or business reinvention happened, which Blockbuster did not pay attention. Another example, not from a company standpoint, but from the trend standpoint, gig economy. And what the gig economy is the number of people who are working temporarily contracted instead of the traditional employment. And I know that the technology has helped with the gig economy, but I go back to this the theory of innovation, where we know that some crises accelerate this crossing the chasm. And what I feel is that really helped. And if you look at the numbers right now, at 36% of the US workers are part of the gig economy, 57 million people. So a huge number. And so we know that there things are happening right now, and we need to keep that in mind as we are moving forward and keep those trends in mind. So we don't know when the worst is going to be over, but we're seeing some signs of improvement. If you look at China, the productivity, they pretty much went 50% of the productivity, and now they are coming back here, okay? Almost coming back to normal levels as compared to last year. We know that S&P has regained some of the losses. The curve in Spain, Italy, Germany, some of the European countries is coming down. So a lot of these signs are good signs, and something of this nature, I think this is giving us some hope as well. But our response, again, I go back to this, my comment about the response. So if we take a look at the post-crisis scenario, what will happen? Are we going to return to the way we worked before? Are we going to retain the new working habits we developed? Or are we going to maintain some of the working habits we developed? So feel free to put your comments in the chat box. What do you think? Are we going to return to the way we worked before? Are we going to retain some of the new working habits, or are we going to maintain some of the working habits that we developed? Okay. So moving forward, there's two things which we believe is going to be paramount. Number one, technology. If we think digital automation was making a disruption, this will only accelerate from here. Number two is the mindset. And this is one of the untapped resources, people, that I think we were not paying too much attention to it. But moving forward, I think this will become a key point as we move forward. So three key areas that we recommend to focus for us to focus as we move forward. Number one, human experience. Okay. So transform the experience, drive retention, and stimulate loyalty with the new rules and possibilities everywhere. The customer, with our employees, with our suppliers, all stakeholders. Number two is operational excellence. So we need to apply some of those operational excellence tools, improving our balance sheet through those tools. And we're going to talk a little bit deeper about these things. And the number three is business model reinvention. We need to think different. So let's take a look at this human experience. So you know this, and we all know this, that the human behavior is disrupted. As one of the main things that has happened right now is the human behavior is disrupted. And we have adopted new ways of working, new ways of communication, new ways of collaborating, and these are the new rules. And this is where we need to embrace these new rules. We need to understand what are these new rules and how we're going to use them moving forward. So what we need to do, 4 things. And I'm going to give you an example as well. Number one, we need to reinvent the human experience. Number two, we need to increase reach and engagement everywhere. Okay? And I think a lot of us are doing this. We're asking people, how are you doing? Customers, what's happening? How we can help? We're doing a lot of work in this area, but we need to keep it up. And this will only will help us moving forward. Number 3 is use the power of data. Use the power of data and how we can improve the human experiences using data. And number 4, mesh physical and digital experiences. Imagine a physical experience where you go to work, and we were always working in an office, but now we are working at home. Moving forward, how can we mesh this digital and the physical experience? I think that will be a very critical point moving forward. Just want to give you an example here. Delta, for example, or airline industry. What was the human experience that Delta had with their customers? Okay, it used to be the experience was when you sit in the airplane. That was the start of the experience, and when the airplane landed, that was the end. But now look at the experience, how the experience has changed. The experience started when you start to plan the journey. This is where the experience started, and this is where airline companies, Delta and many of the companies, they are coming in. And then how can we start to plan the journey to when you arrive at the journey? Okay, and when you're maybe and you know that how things have changed. Another example is Delta is working with Lyft, so they can, once you book for your flight, you can get a pickup from Lyft, and then when you arrive, they can give you a drop off. With So these are some of the things very important. We need to pay attention to human experiences. Number two is operational excellence. I'm going to ask Asad to share his points about operational excellence here.
Yeah, hi everybody. So just to think about operational excellence for a moment. So now we know we're going through this very, very challenging time. And one of the things that I am seeing right now across many industries, many companies, we know the companies need some very transformational type of activities, changes that they need to make. Yet, they're going after the operational excellence, CI, Lean Six Sigma type of people first. That is part of their cost cutting, immediate cost cutting. Let's get rid of these people. So you have to ask yourself that why is it that everybody acknowledges that this is so important, which by the way, Numan and I, we both think that this is one of the key pillars, key component in a business for them to actually transform. Yet they continue to struggle. They continue to, anytime they need to do any kind of these changes, these measures to take, they go after these first. So this is where you have to think about if you're working for a company where there's already an OpEx program in place, or you're trying to develop your own capabilities. One of the things that you have to think about is what's wrong with this picture. What is wrong with this picture is that 99% of the companies, they actually have no purpose whatsoever for OpEx. It never aligns with what they're trying to accomplish, or if it does align, it aligns with some nonsense that nobody can actually relate to. So that's where you have to start. If you're thinking about your own company or what is happening with your own company, your own capability, you have to think about how do I align this operational excellence pillar with the actual business strategy, with the business transformation plan. Okay? So that's number one. The second thing is, don't make this about cost cutting, right? That's the other piece, is that operational excellence now, if you're not confused, one of those confused companies that they have 12, 13, 14, I have seen as many as 18 pillars that they have created, and everybody's confused to what to do with them. And it has just turned into an exercise of doing assessments and telling people you suck. Instead of, if you're not one of those companies, then you're probably one of the companies where you're trying to use this as a cost-cutting tool. That's the sad part. Neither of them are actually helpful, right? Because neither of them both of them are very short-term thinking, very much of a local optimization, versus truly using the skills that you have developed in your people, and then the roadmap, the tools that are under OpEx that can truly transform your business. If you think about it, if you truly align it with the purpose, and if you truly make this part of your business, your culture, human capital, human experience that Naman has talked about, if you really embed OpEx thinking, OpEx strategies, OpEx tools in these, then you'll be amazed at what you can actually do, how this mindset, these tools can truly transform you into a much, much better company, a much, much better individual, a professional as well. So I'll just leave it at that.
No, thank you, Asad. So operational excellence, I think, is a competitive advantage, and through this, not only you can improve efficiency, but you can create innovation to solve problems, because this is the foundation of OpEx, is solving problems. The third one is very interesting, which is the business model reinvention. We need to think customer experience. We need to rethink customer experience, internal capabilities, and market opportunities. Three things. To reinvent business possibilities. And this is huge right now, especially in this market and what we are doing. And what can we do right now? Three strategies, three things that we can do from this perspective. Number one, reinventing industries or new businesses. Number one, through the platform strategies. And we have seen these platform strategies where we have seen Uber, Airbnb, and some of the traditional players like Marriott have come into this place where they created a platform where people can use their properties. Zipcar, Halo. These are some of the business models where we need to think about, hey, what is the opportunity that we have from the platform business model in the current environment? And I think it's very difficult to create this type of platforms, and not every business is going to be successful in that. But there's something that we need to keep in mind, this strategy, which can be a great strategy for this business model reinvention. Number two, creation and substitution of business models using digital technologies. Okay. And again, this is something, we know this, that why Blockbuster failed, because they did not recognize the power of digital and the power of the new business model, and they kept their old business model for too long. And we have seen many of these companies, they have kept their old business models for too long. Kodak is another example. When the digital camera came, they kept the old way of working for too long, and by the time they could react to that, it was too late. So there are many examples where there's an opportunity like this. So Nike, for example, has reinvented themselves. Okay, Nike used to be a shoe company, but look at Nike, what they're doing right now in the digital space. I think Nike is one of their growth is Nike's growth is coming from the digital business, where they have Nike Plus, the Fuel Band. So a lot of these type of tools where they matched the spirit of Nike, which is to be the best with digital. So again, that's another area, creation and substitution of business using digital. It's a great area for us to focus right now. And we need to take a look at the trends right now. What are the trends and how can we leverage these things? Number three is the redefinition or reinvention of value proposition and delivery. Delivery of the value proposition is very important. So I give you an example here in terms of Tesla, how Tesla evolved with a new business model from this value delivery. So the automotive business, the model of value delivery is you sell your cars through the dealerships. And in the Tesla business model, what they did was they eliminated the dealerships. So again, they thought about their value proposition, what they're bringing to the customer, okay, and how they're going to deliver that value proposition to the customer. And this is where they transform the whole industry. And when you bring this type of innovation, this type of disruption in the market, your competitors there's no way that is very difficult for them to compete. And it takes a lot of time for them to bring competitive product in the market when you do something like this. Again, another delivery value proposition delivery is Airbnb model versus the hotel industry, the Uber model versus the taxi business. So there's a lot of these businesses where they are bringing value, they're redefining value and delivering value in a very different way. That is where the opportunity is. Now, how can we do this? I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'm gonna touch on it very briefly. 4 phases of the change roadmap. Okay, number 1, discovery. Okay, so we need to reflect, we need to discover what is our capabilities, culture, what is the extent of the crisis, what is happening, competition, opportunities. And through this discovery phase, we need to come up with the current state of affairs. This is the delivery of this discovery model. And this is something I think we need to do immediately right now. And we need to, based upon this, we need to respond. I think most of the companies are responding to the current short-term needs, but let's keep in mind the midterm and the long-term needs as well from this perspective. Number 2 is alignment. And in this model, in this phase, we need to create a vision. We need to define priorities. We need to align guiding coalition. We need to bring people on the same page. And we need to understand the talent needs. And then we need to very quickly communicate the vision, the purpose of the company. And this is something we need to do right away to our company, to our people, because there's a huge disruption right now where people don't know what is happening, what is the purpose. And through this, we need to deliver the transformation blueprint. Okay? And then number 4 phase is pilot phase, where how can we generate some short-term wins and build new capabilities. And we can start right now. And we don't need to stop. We don't need to wait for stability. We need the solutions that we know right now. We need to start right now, okay? And then through those experiences, we can scale. Now, key point that we need to have is we need to have a change team in place. We need to have this crisis team in place right now in companies, in our communities as well, and so that they are the people who are driving this whole change. And this is where the transformation management office, this is the people who are the people with the experience in transformation in current companies. They need to step up, and we need to redefine their role and not just go and do some problem solving. And we need to inspire that how we can solve some of these problems that we have right now. Okay. Final thoughts. Speed is of the essence. We need to move fast. Perfection will follow. So we don't need to make things perfect right now. We just need to go. So we need to think in this current environment. We need to think, innovatively. Learn through iteration, through experiment, stay agile and resilient. And we need to do it now. And this is what the need is right now for us to do. So with this, I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to open for some questions. Thanks for joining again. We appreciate that. And if you have any comments, if you have any feedback, or if you need any support, feel free to reach us. The email is listed